come and sit in the audience, I can't help it. I mean, it's just like anytime I talk about the homeless issues and the thing, I'm surprised I haven't cried yet in this podcast. All the time. I'm a very emotional person, and that is all really, that whole experience is close to my heart, and helping other people is close to my heart too, and realizing the struggles that people go through, not just through drug addiction, but I had to come to terms with the fact that I was mentally ill also, and I had to actually voice that and publicize that, and so I don't see people just struggling with addiction, but also mental health issues and that whole thing. So, and it was probably, I want to say, it's been 15 years now, so I'm guessing it was within I'll say the first 6 months of being clean.
Oh,
probably,
real recent then?
Probably sooner. I'd say in the first few months.
That's got to help with accountability. You know, you're freshly clean sober, and you announce to the world that you're freshly clean sober.
It was huge. I love this community. So, I announced it, and it was all over the news, and then I started doing interviews after that, and public speaking after that, and it was crazy. I'd be sitting in a bar watching a football game with a bunch of friends, and total strangers would come up to me and make sure I was okay, and holding me accountable. Like, that's just water, right? Yeah. And some of them would actually pull me out of the bar, like, let's go.
Wow.
There's a coffee shop. And so I love Reno, Nevada, because they embrace me, and it continues today through my recovery and just support, and just Reno's an amazing place.
Yeah, it is.
And I haven't come across anybody that's ever judged me that's like said I'm not deserving of a good life because I was a meth addict.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, cool stuff.
How many times did you quit before you actually quit?
Maybe in my mind, hundreds of times. I don't think when you get to that darkest level of drug use, like where you're sneaking into hotels just so you can get a breakfast and living on the streets.
Well, I thought that was just college.
No. That's it. Like, I mean, my life turned into, like, I burned every bridge. You know, I started hating myself. So the first time I really wanted to quit, my way of quitting was driving myself out to the middle of nowhere and trying to intentionally overdose on heroin. It didn't work, obviously, just because I had too much meth in my system. My heart didn't want to stop.
So that was not metaphorical. That was, you literally tried that method.
Yeah.
Wow.
February 2014, I took a look at my life and the person that I was, because, like, you get to a point so deep in your drug addiction, you're like sitting inside this house, and who you are is outside that window, and you can see it. And who I was is somebody who's athletic, playing sports, hiking, hanging out with family, doing all that, and I'm sitting in here in a little chair by myself, not wanting to talk to anybody because, like, I didn't want to share my drugs, I didn't want to be around anybody, and, like, at this point, my dad barely even talked to me, and, like, my dad, you know, he's one of those guys, if I ever got locked up, he's like, leave him in there. Very hard, but very loving. I don't think ever in my life when I called him did he not answer. He maybe yelled at me, but he was always there, and he was at his end. My other family couldn't look at me without crying anymore. I wasn't allowed to go to my aunt's and grandma's house anymore because of the person I became. So I hit that point where I'm driving myself to the middle of nowhere and just ending it. It seemed like the best idea. And looking back, I'm beyond grateful that didn't work. I actually ended up in rehab in Fallon, Nevada, later that year, December of 2014.
New Frontier?
Yes. Yeah.
Shout out to New Frontier.
Yeah.
Successful case sitting right in front of me.
I love them, and they legitimately saved my life. So when I drove myself in the middle of nowhere, tried to OD, that was the first time I wanted to stop. The next time, I was in Las Vegas because I moved to Vegas thinking that's where I can get clean because that's where my dad was. And it didn't work out very well. Vegas is not a great place to make good decisions. And I went to my dad and I just put myself down and I needed help. Took me to the VA. I wound up actually getting arrested while in the VA in the psych ward. I got a disorderly
That's
conduct.
hard to do.
It's very hard to do. I've never met anybody else who's been arrested in a psych ward. So
I think we're trying to combat those kinds of things, right?
Yeah. Well,
not judging the mentally ill.
And so here's the addict mind. When that's going on, when you're in handcuffs, because, like, you're like, wait, I came here to get help. Now I'm in handcuffs and I'm on my way to jail, like that's when it's everybody else is the problem, and I'm like, man, everybody sucks, life sucks, I hate this, I can't even get help. Well, that charge is how I got the opportunity to go to New Frontier, which saved my life. So I've had the opportunity to go and speak and talk to people, and there's a lot of people feel the same way. I got arrested, my life is over. Me getting arrested was probably the best thing ever happened to me. And then I spent 83 days there, and I'll be honest, that first month was terribly hard. I've done a lot of hard stuff. I mean, 2-a-days for football growing up in Yuma, Arizona, where it's 100 degrees, the Marine Corps. Like, there's a lot of hard stuff that I've done. I don't know how sitting in a roof place where I got meals, I had a bed, and all I had to do was show up for group was, like, literally the hardest thing. But psychologically, my mind was all over the place. I should have been kicked out. I punched a hole through a wall there. I swallowed a goldfish. And
Again, this sounds like college. I don't know what's right.
But I did get kicked out. And right before I got kicked out, the director, I don't know if she's still there. Her name is Lana. She overturned that. She gave me one more chance. I think I was on day 26.
And they told you to stay away from the goldfish.
Yeah, I wasn't. They put a sign they can't drink the goldfish, and it's still there. So it's a true story. But anyways, that 26th day where I should have been kicked out, and I didn't, turned into 83 days. And then I made Northern Nevada my home. And like Pat was saying, this place is amazing. Like just the community that we have here is so accepting and so uplifting, and the opportunities for people is just great. Like if you can get to where you're ready to drive yourself to the middle of nowhere and kill yourself, and then get to the point where I feel like I am, with an amazing family. I got amazing coworkers, friends. Like I'm super grateful. So
He drove us here in his new truck.
Yeah.
New truck. Yep.
It's funny because I actually got kicked out of rehab after 4 days, and but those 4 days, so I was in my addiction. I was stuck in Reno for almost 12 years, and I grew up traveling, and I went to school in Switzerland and all these wonderful things. And you think you have a perfect life. Why would you ever choose addiction? But mental health issues and stuff like that. So anyway, but I went and to Southern California, and those 4 days, just leaving Reno and actually going and seeing the ocean and people enjoying themselves, and for me to get to my group, I had to walk from my room, and I had to pass by a bar, and it was an open air bar with no windows, and it was warm, but I heard as I walked by, it wasn't the drinking that caught my eye, it was all the laughter and the people enjoying themselves and having fun, and then I'd see someone in there with their family all walking to the beach and laughing, and I felt sunshine on my face. And I don't want to get all like spiritual and like flower child on you, but it was like just seeing the colors of trees again. And because meth addiction is so dark and everything happens at night, to see those things, it was like those 4 days changed my life, and I never relapsed from that point on. And,
but you got kicked out.
I did get kicked out.
What'd you do? We got to know.
I actually, it was on the weekend, and I actually, Austin said, your mind is just, I was crazy. 10 years of meth addiction, all of a sudden 4 days clean with no drugs. My mind was going out of control. Probably should have been locked up with Austin. We could have shared a room. And so I wandered down the beach for probably 3 hours. And when I came back, they asked where I was, and I told them, and they said, well, you need to come drug test. And so I went drug test. Well, 10 years of addiction, I was still urinating drugs. And they said I relapsed, and they were going to put all these conditions on me. And being the crazy individual I was at that point, I did realize I had 4 days clean. It was the first time in 4 days, and I refused to let anyone take those 4 days away from me. And that's just how I always treat my recovery, is like I go to the jails, and I'm like, I dare any of you guys in here to try and take my recovery, because it's not going to go well. Yeah. And that's the way it was. I had that mindset right away, like, man, I'm celebrating 4 days, and you guys are like, and I got in a huge fight, and I probably said things I probably shouldn't have said, and they helped my. I don't even know if they really kicked me out. I just was like, I'm not. I left, and that was it. And that was what changed my life. And I came home and reached out to a really good friend of mine who was a big athlete in the area, and I'll even tell you his name's Franz Weber, and he kind of built a little recovery center for me. It was all based on hiking and nature, and we walked up to a little place in Collin Ranch called Cross Peak, and he had built a little cross up there for some family members who had passed away, and he put a little metal box up there with a book in it.
Been there.
And have you? Well, now you know who the founder
yeah,
is.
did not know that.
Is the founder, and I actually helped him carry a bunch of stuff up there. So, but it's a really spiritual place for me, and that's kind of when Austin and I go there. It's kind of like going to church for me. And so, for the first year of my recovery, I walked up there at least 300 times, sometimes 3 times in a day, and
wow.
And just cleared my head, and it was really cool because I was one of those weird guys that actually gained weight from using meth and was super out of shape and weighed 230 pounds, and as I just started seeing things change, like my mental like negativity started to change, and I started seeing my body change and my physical appearance change, and I started getting healthy, and I started eating healthy. And so that place is like magical, and I went up there literally every other day for a year, and then started riding bikes and doing all kinds of stuff. And so that's how
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
the audience can see me. I was shaking my head when you were talking about getting kicked out of the rehab, because I worked for a rehab facility here for a little while, and one of the philosophies was, people go away on a weekend or a pass or something, and then they come back and they pee dirty or whatever. It's like we kick them out of the program. It's like, well, no, they're addicted. You have to love them through it. And I was like, oh no, if you're not like fully sober and compliant, then you're disqualified from help. Like, what?
Yeah.
This is nonsensical. This is inverted thinking.
And I deal with that a lot at the shelter. Someone comes in and they're being violent or having a mental health episode, or not wanting to follow the rules, and there's individuals that think that they should be kicked out, and it's like, no, that's not what we do. Or they come in with a bottle of beer, and they have a bottle of beer in the shelter, and then everyone's like, kick them out, and I'm like, no,
we kick out the beer.
No, that's not what we do around here. So
let's talk about this shelter. And I want you guys to share your homelessness experiences. And then tell what you're doing to help change that here. And eventually I want to, at least touch on the politics and policy and funding aspect of things too, because this is prevalent in every community.
So I can tell you, every night here in Reno, Nevada, at the shelters, we're full. And as I said earlier, we probably have room for just under 400 individuals. And I can tell you, through these past storms that we've had in town, we probably had 600 individuals at the shelter. So we're maxed out. I have an incredible staff of probably 75 employees who nobody's getting rich off this line of work.
Nope.
And so I just want to make sure everyone realizes that the employees of Volunteers of America and the people running those shelters, in my eyes, are I consider them all angels. I can't figure out why they'd be doing this type of work for the pay that they get and for what they have to put up with, on a daily basis. Is I don't know. Sainthood would be a good thing, I think.
Except you're not Catholic anymore, so we can't do that.
So, but we're located down at 335 Record Street, and we are a low barrier shelter, which means we do not turn away anybody, regardless of. They can come in drunk. They can come in with a needle hanging out of their arm. I'm not going to turn away anybody. Everybody deserves to have shelter.
Do you have medical services there? So if somebody's like bleeding out their ears,
So we do, but it's not operated through Volunteers of America. It's called Community Health Alliance. And so they're located on the second floor of the shelters, and that's totally open to everybody. So if someone does come in or gets sick at the shelter, we can send them over there.
We've had Patrick Rogers on the show before.
Oh, yeah.
Community Health Alliance is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. They do amazing work. And they just recently, in the last year, started dentistry.
Yep.
And I can tell you, I know what a haircut does for somebody. I know what a shower does for somebody. When someone gets a new set of teeth, everything that I just mentioned, haircuts, new tennis shoes, a shower, brushing their teeth, they're all life-changing events for someone living on the streets.
Yeah.
But when you get a new set of teeth, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
It's like, I had a girl that works for us now, and she was struggling so bad, and she would come to my office every day, and I'd get her into rehab, and then she'd disappear for 2 months, and then come back, and every time she'd lose a tooth, and her teeth were just, and eventually she went upstairs, and they pulled every tooth in her head, and she was embarrassed, and she quit coming to see me, and But little did I know that she was actually working on her recovery during that period of time. She just was too embarrassed to come and